Hello and warm greetings. Welcome to another episode of the Daily News. Today we are going to discuss following articles: consumption and growth, Article 101 MP's absence, third one Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan, fourth saving white rhino, and lastly soul conclave. The first article from the decoded section we have is consumption enough to drive growth? It is in the backdrop of role of consumption and investment as drivers of economic growth. This comes under the GS paper 3, that is Indian economy, and especially the national income and development growth. National income and development and economic growth topic. Before moving ahead, there have been some previous year questions that have been asked from this section. These questions are, the first one is, faster economic growth requires increased share of manufacturing sector in GDP, particularly of MSMEs. Comment on the present policies of the government in this regard. That is in Mains 2023. Do you agree with the view that steady GDP growth and low inflation have left Indian economy in good shape? Give reasons in support of your arguments. Mains 2019. Then, among several factors of Indian potential growth, saving rate is the most effective one. Do you agree? What are the other factors available for growth potential? Mains 2017. Economic growth depends upon two things. First one is demand and second one is supply. It is the balance between demand and supply that the economic growth can be ensured in a sustainable manner. For example, if the demand falls short, what is going to happen? It will lead to unsold inventories. If the inventories are unsold, then it will lead to production cuts, job losses, and economic slowdown. However, on the other side, if the supply is falling short to meet the demands, it is going to lead to price rise causing inflation. Both these situations, inflationary as well as cutting of the demands, they lead to economic growth imbalance, or they lead to economic imbalances in our economy. Now, when we say economic growth, we means that the growth in GDP. In terms of GDP calculation, we measure how much the GDP has grown over the last year. The GDP calculation is done by three methods. The first one is production method or output method. The second one is income method. And the third one we have is expenditure method. In the expenditure method, we actually have four elements. The first element is the private consumption. The private individuals like us, how we are spending, that is known as private expenditure. We spend upon food, clothing, electronics. So these comes under this thing. So whatever expenditure that we do, that comes under private expenditure. The second thing is government spending. Now government spends in multiple ways. The government spends in the terms of welfare services, public services, welfare schemes that the government come out with. Along with it, it also spends in investment. For example, building up roads, building up railways, building up of hospitals, education centers, etc. Third thing is investment. Investment in the terms of machinery or construction or skill development. Last one is net exports. Net exports means exports minus imports. So whatever net exports that are happening, either positive or negative, they are also taken in the expenditure method for our GDP calculation. So GDP calculation through the expenditure method depends upon four elements. The first element is private consumption. The second one is government spending. The third one is investment. And the last one is export or net exports. Now when we say that the government spending is now when we say about government spending, it is actually happening in two manners. One is expenditure. The another one is investment. So basically, if we say the GDP is depending upon two things. The first thing is, it is about the consumption. Might it be private or might it be government. The second one is investment. The investment part includes two things. The first one is private investment and the second one is public or government investment. The other things comes under consumption expenditure. So while calculating GDP by expenditure method, we actually have two elements. The first element is consumption element and the second one is investment element, because the whatever we are spending is going in these two directions only. Now the question before us is that should we focus on increasing the consumption in the economy, or should we focus upon the investment part in the economy? Because there actually becomes two models. One is that consumption led model, and the second is the investment led development model or growth model. Let's see one by one what are the benefits of the consumption led model, and the second one is the investment led model. The first one we have is consumption led growth. In the consumption led growth, demand is the main factor. Demand actually provides immediate economic boost to the economy. Secondly, it motivates the domestic industries to produce more. When they are going to produce more, then it is going to lead to increase in jobs, it is going to lead to increase in the production supply of the economy. This increase in the jobs will help in improving the income levels in the country. So it is actually countering two things. First is that it is countering unemployment by creating more jobs. Secondly, it is increasing income levels of the economy. That's how it is trying to control the inequality in the economy. Second thing with the demand part is that it is actually steady. The investment actually comes in cycle, but the demand part, it is more or less continuous in the economy. So it helps in ensuring a steady continuous growth in the economy. Moreover, if the production capacity of the industries is increasing, it is also going to help in steady continuous growth in the economy. Now when the income levels are rising, when there is a steady economic growth in the economy, the GDP levels are also going to rise. This increase in the GDP levels and this increase in the income levels is going to actually boost up the government revenues. These government revenues will be spent in the investment as well as in the social welfare schemes. When this is spent in investment as well as in the social welfare schemes, it is actually lead to the better living standards. So increase in the social welfare spending, increase in the income levels are going to help in having better living standards for the citizens. Also, if our domestic demand is good enough, then our dependence upon exports is also reduced. Because the industries dependent upon the exports, it actually leads to the vulnerabilities of the international market coming to India, and they actually affect our economy. So if our domestic demand is good enough, then it will be able to absorb the supply side of the industries, and our dependence upon the exports and our dependence over the international markets, it is also going to be reduced. So these are the benefits of having a consumption led growth model. Now another model that we have is the investment led model. If we see the investment led model, what it is going to do? It is going to provide us a long term sustainable growth model. Now how this investment is providing a long term sustainable model? First of all, where we are going to do the investment? We are going to invest in infrastructure, we are going to invest in industries, we are going to invest in technology, bringing in new machinery, bringing in new technologies, and lastly, we are going to invest in the human resource also, the skill set of our human resource. That is the capacity building of both industries as well as of the human resource. What it is going to do? First of all, it is going to help in improving the production capacity of the economy. That means we will be able to produce more. Second thing that it is going to do is that it is going to improve the productivity as well. Why? Because we are now having better productivity, better technology. We are now having better skill set. So we are able to produce more. So our productivity has also increased. Along with this, the better infrastructure reduces the logistic cost of the industries, of the producing units. Now one by one we are going to see how the production capacity is going to help us and how the productivity is going to help us. First of all, the production capacity. If the production capacity is increasing, then it is going to lead to job creation. That means it is solving the problem of unemployment in the economy. Second thing, the GDP growth. If the production capacity is increasing, that means we are producing more. That means our GDP is increasing. Our GDP is increasing, that means we are having better income levels in the economy. So the job creation as well as the GDP growth are improving the income levels in the economy. When these income levels are increasing, then it is going to lead to more demand in the economy. When will be more demand in the economy, that means the industries are going to invest more. and they are going to increase their production capacity. As a result, more jobs will be created. So a cyclic relation is being created here. Next thing we have is that we are actually creating long-term assets. For example, roads. For example, renewable energy. For example, better machinery. For example, we can have better power resources. So we are actually generating long-term assets which are going to be helpful over a long term of period. Now when these things happen, what they are going to help? They are going to help in improving the government revenues. The government revenues will be increased by the increased GDP, by the increased income levels. When the government revenues increase, it is going to help in improving the government spending. And government spending basically will be in two forms. First will be investment, second will be in the welfare and public service. So better public services we are going to get, better welfare measures the government will be able to take, and lastly, it will be investing more in the economy. So this more or increased government spending is going to increase the investment of the economy, the investment capacity of the economy. Secondly, this more increased government spending along with the raised income levels, they are going to help in improving the standards of living of the citizens. That means we are able to counter poverty as well. Secondly, when we create assets, it actually creates a level playing field for all. So we will be able to reduce inequality in the economy also. So there will be more avenues for the people to actually generate income when we are having long-term assets in the economy. Secondly, when we are going to invest, where we are going to invest? We are going to invest in those areas which are still backward. For example, in Madhya Pradesh, for example, in Rajasthan or other backward districts that we have in our country. When we are investing in those districts, when we are creating infrastructure in those districts, it is actually bringing in more industries there. It is bringing in more private investment there. This increased investment in the backward districts will help in improving the condition of the locals there. So it will help in reducing the regional disparities as well as income inequalities in the economy. Another benefit of this is that it is also going to help in improving our exports. Why? First of all, our production capacity has increased. So we are actually trying to achieve economies of the scale. So overall cost of production is going to decline. Secondly, the cost of production is also going to decline with the help of improved productivity. That means with less resources, we are improving our production levels. So we are having a better productivity. This better productivity is going to help in making our exports more price competitive. When our exports will be more price competitive, that means they will be having a competitive edge in the international market. When the exports are going to increase, it is going to reduce our trade imbalance. It is going to reduce our trade deficit. This reduced trade deficit is going to help in improving the forex of the economy. Secondly, the value of the rupee will be more stable. When the value of the rupee will be more stable, that means the burden of imports will not be increasing in the coming years. So the investment-led model is more beneficial for an economy because it is having multiple benefits. It is having a long-term sustainable goals. It is going to help in improving our economy, in sustaining our growth in long term. So for the macroeconomic stability of the economy, the investment is very much important. There is a term known as multiplier effect. What is this effect? Multiplier effect simply means that if we are spending 100 rupees, what impact it is going to have on the economy. So we have actually two mechanisms of spending. First one that we have seen is the consumption mechanism, that we are spending more in consumption expenditure. Second one is that we are spending in investment. So which is going to have more impact? The investment-led growth is more sustainable, job generating and export driven, whereas the consumption-led growth relies on existing incomes and can lead to slower, unequal development. So for our economy, which one is better? The investment multiplier effect or the consumption multiplier effect? Actually, we should be focusing upon both the things. We should be focusing upon investment as well as on the consumption. But an imbalance between the two is going to create challenges for our economy. That we can see from the comparison of India and the China. If we compare India and China, in 1990s, both India and China have actually started at the same levels. The investment levels as well as the income levels both were actually same. Since 1992, China started focusing upon the investment part. In 1992 itself, 39.1% of the GDP of China was going for the investment purposes, while at that time India was at the 27%. That means 27% of India's GDP was going towards the investment. And as we move ahead, the gap was almost constant. And with the rising investment in Chinese economy, the income level actually started rising. Whereas for India, the income levels have almost been stable since then. Coming to year 2007, we see that the India and China were very close in terms of the investment. India was actually at its highest level in terms of investment. 35% of the India's GDP was being invested at that time. This was the highest. In 2008, the economic recession came. During this economic recession, the contribution of GDP towards investment in India started declining. However, China was still focusing on the investment part. In 2013 itself, the Chinese investment was at its highest. It was 44.5%. So we are seeing that the China has been continuously focusing upon investment. That investment was actually going into new technologies like AI, like renewable energy, like manufacturing, infrastructure. So China was more focusing upon the investment-led growth model, and that actually helped in increasing their income levels as well. The Chinese income levels have started rising since 2002, and they have been continuously rising. And now we see there has been a stark difference between India and China's income levels. Whereas on India's side, after 2007, the investment levels have almost been stagnant. They have been around 30% of the GDP. So now there is a stark difference between India and China in terms of investment. And this stark difference has actually contributed to the differences in the income level that India and China is having. If we compare in terms of USC, the India's per capita income is only 3% of what the US per capita income is, whereas China's per capita income is 15% of that of USC. So that means China's per capita income is 5 times than that of India. So this is a stark difference between India and China's economic situation. That per capita income of India is hardly 1/5 that of the China. And the basic reason that comes to forefront is the investment part. India's investment is basically stagnant at 30%. And if we see in terms of GDP, what we find is that in India, the growth is basically consumption led. India's 60% GDP goes towards the private consumption. The investment is only 30.8%. Then, secondly, the government consumption is only 10%. Exports are 21% and imports are minus 24%. That means net exports we have is minus 3%. If we compare that with the China's private consumption is only 39.1%, whereas the investment is 41.1% and the government consumption is 16.5%. And the net exports it is having they are positive. So India's net exports are negative and China's are positive. Secondly, the India's growth is basically private consumption led, whereas Chinese growth is basically investment led growth. So that's why we are seeing a difference in the per capita income and the GDP whereas India and China started at the same time. Now if we compare the last 10 years data, we find that the India's investment has almost been stagnant around 30%. It was around 32% and it has declined since then, and it is now increasing in recent years. More or less, it has not gone above 35% level. So India's investment has actually been very less. Now talking about what initiatives the Indian government has taken regarding this, in the recent budget of 2025-26, the investment has been considered as the third engine of development. The other engines of development being agriculture, then MSME. Third one is we have seen the investment, and last one is exports. So these are the four engines that have been identified as by the budget as the engines of the growth. Development, investment is the third engine of development. For that, the capex expenditure that we are going to have for this year will be 11.21 lakh crores, that is 3.1% of the GDP. The budget has identified three areas where the investment are going to be. The first one is investing in people, that is skill development, that is human resource development. For that, schemes like Saksham Anganwadi, Poshan 2.0, National Center for Excellence for Skilling, expansion of capacities in IITs, etc. schemes have been focused upon. Second thing is investing in economy. It actually means infrastructure investment. It actually means investing in economy which is going to have long-term impact. So asset monetization plan, urban challenge fund, then nuclear energy mission for Viksit Bharat, maritime development fund, shipbuilding, building, road infrastructure, etc. have been focused upon. Third one is investing in innovation, that is PM Research Fellowship, then gene banks for crop germplasm, Gyan Bharatam mission, National Geospatial mission, 20,000 crore for private sector led R&D. So the budget has identified these areas under the investment engine for our growth. Now, after covering this holistically, you are in position to attempt one question. A practice question is visible on your screens. You can attempt this question and you can post your answers in the comment section. The next article that we have is from the polity section. It is about the Article 101 of the Indian Constitution, which relates with vacating of seat by Member of Parliament. It is in the context of the news that MP Amritpal Singh, who belongs to Punjab, petitioned Punjab and Haryana High Court to attend ongoing Parliament session fearing seat loss due to prolonged absence. It is in the context of polity or Indian polity. Now, what about the news? The news is that MP Amritpal Singh has petitioned Punjab and Haryana High Court that he may lose his seat due to prolonged absence. And he has been detained since April 2023 in the Dibrugarh jail under the National Security Act. The Article 101 Provision 4 mandates that a MP has to vacate seat in case of prolonged absence from the Parliament. Till now, this Article 101 has never been invoked. Now, what do we mean by vacating of the seat? It is actually mentioned in Article 101. Article 101 says that a member has to vacate the seat from the Parliament in case of four conditions. The first condition is if he is elected for both the houses, that is, if he is elected for Rajya Sabha as well as for the Lok Sabha, then he has to vacate one seat, either in the Rajya Sabha or in the Lok Sabha. Secondly, he is disqualified or has given resignation. In that case also, the Member of Parliament has to vacate his seat. Regarding disqualifications, we have Article 102, which we are all going to discuss further. Now, third one is that if the member has been elected as an MP and MLA, if a same person is elected as an MP and is also elected as MLA, then one seat that member has to actually vacate, either the MP seat or the MLA seat. Lastly, if the member is absent for more than 60 days in the Parliament, then in that case, the member has to vacate his parliamentary seat. Now, under this provision of the absence for 60 days, how it is done? It is a period of 60 days that the member is not present in either house of the Parliament without permission of the house. That means here the permission of the house has to be taken. That means all the members are going to give consent for the prolonged absence. And he is absent for all meetings of the house for more than 60 days. Also, this article says that in computing the said period of 60 days, no account shall be taken for any period during which the house is prorogued or is adjourned for more than 4 consecutive days. So these are the two conditions that are given in Article 101 Provision 4. Next is Article 102. Article 102 actually tells the conditions for disqualification of an MP. This article says that a member of Parliament will be disqualified on following grounds. First ground is office for profit. Second is unsound mind. Third one is undischarged insolvent. Then he is not a citizen of India. It is found that he is not a citizen of India. Lastly, any law made by the Parliament. Under the last provision, the Parliament has actually legislated the RPA, or Representation of People's Act of 1951. Under this, the important sections are Section 8, Section 9 and Section 10. Section 8 talks about conviction of offences. Section 9 talks about corruption or disloyalty towards the country. Thirdly, Section 10 talks about election expenses. So these are the conditions on basis of which a member can be disqualified. Now based upon this, you can attempt this prelims question. The next news article we have is about Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan. It is in the backdrop of that CM Stalin, who is the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu state, urged PM Modi to release Samagra Shiksha funds without linking them to NEP 2020. NEP is National Education Policy. Now something about the news. MK Stalin, who is Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, he has sought PM's intervention in release of pending funds under the Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan. He has said that the Samagra Shiksha funds should not be linked with NEP 2020. Now why Tamil Nadu state is against this national education policy? Because of the three language formula. Under the national education policy, a student can learn 3 languages. Now while this 3 language formula is being implemented, Tamil Nadu fears that the Tamil language will reduce its impact in the state. So there is a fear of losing the linguistic identity of the state. That's why they are not endorsing this 3 language formula of the national education policy. Now CM Stalin has said that this Samagra Shiksha funds should be de-linked from the NEP implementation. That's why these funds have been stopped by the union government. He has also said that this is a pressure tactic to coerce Tamil Nadu to adopt the central programs which violate cooperative federalism as well. So this is the issue. Now something about the Samagra Shiksha scheme. This is a centrally sponsored scheme. That means the center and state will be contributing in terms of 60-40. However, for the northeastern states, the contribution will be 90:10. This is an integrated scheme for school education covering complete primary and senior secondary. It was launched in 2018 and it is an umbrella scheme. It has replaced the Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan, Rashtriya Madhyamik Shiksha Abhiyan and Teacher Education Scheme. Its objective is to universalize the access to school education, promote equality through inclusion, and improve quality of education across all levels of school education. Its objective will be, first of all, to implement SDG 4 means Sustainable Development Goal 4, that is right to education, and to implement the new education policy in an inclusive way. So this is the objective of this scheme. Now it is having some persistent challenges as well. What are these? First of all, insufficient funds and delayed disbursements. Secondly, quality of education and learning outcomes remains inconsistent. That has been a persisting problem in our education system. Next, teacher shortage and lack of adequate training. And lastly, digital divide that we have between the haves and have-nots. Now on basis of this, you can attempt the prelims question visible on your screen. The next article we have is Saving White Rhino. It is in the backdrop of scientists are using IVF to save the nearly extinct northern white rhino with hopes of a new fetus this year. It is relevant from the ecology and environment topic of your syllabus. Now something about the news. Efforts are going to rescue the nearly extinct northern white rhino through in vitro fertilization. So these two terms will become important for you. You should know what is the status of the northern white rhino. Secondly, you should know what is in vitro fertilization. That is being taught to you in your general science classes. Next thing, only 2 northern white rhinos remain on earth and they are in Kenya. The subspecies was declared functionally extinct. Functionally extinct means that they cannot breed no more. And why it was there? Because of the death of the last male Sudan in 2018. Now with respect to conservation of this white rhino, only Najin and Fatu, both female white rhinos, cannot carry pregnancy due to uterus problems. However, Fatu still provides viable eggs which have been made suitable for the IVF. Eggs have been collected and they have been sent to Europe for fertilization. Something about IVF. IVF is known as an assisted reproductive technology where eggs and sperms are combined outside the body in the laboratory. The resulted embryo is planted in the uterus, and IVF is commonly used to treat infertility. Lastly, about the IUCN status of the species of rhino. Basically, we have 5 rhino species. First one is white rhino. It has two subspecies. One is northern white rhino and another one is southern white rhino. So you should be clear that this northern white rhino is actually critically endangered, and this news article was about this northern white rhino only. Secondly, the southern white rhino, it has the status of near threatened. Secondly, great one-horned rhinoceros, which is found in India, it is actually vulnerable. Next is Javan rhino, it is again critically endangered. Sumatran rhino, it is again critically endangered, and black rhinos, they are also critically endangered. So you should know that almost all the rhino species are critically endangered except for the great one-horned rhino that is found in India in Kaziranga National Park. Secondly, the southern white rhino. They have the status of near threatened and vulnerable. So you should know the IUCN status of rhinos. That becomes important for you. Next thing is something about this northern white rhino. So it is the second largest land and mammal found on the earth after elephants. It has 2 subspecies, northern and southern white rhinos, and the habitat includes the South Sudan and adjacent areas of Uganda and Democratic Republic of Congo. White rhinos are native to Africa and they live in grasslands, shrublands and savannas. They are important. Why they are important? They are mega herbivores, that is large plant eating animals that shape the landscape and promote biodiversity. Now based upon this, you can attempt the prelims question visible on your screens. The last article for the day is Seoul Conclave. This Seoul Conclave is in news because PM will inaugurate the first Seoul Leadership Conclave in Delhi with Bhutan PM as the guest of honor. Now it is relevant from national and international important point of view. Firstly, something about the news. Bhutan PM will be delivering a keynote address as the guest of honor at the conclave. Secondly, the conclave is aimed at fostering young leadership for vibrant public life across diverse fields. So it is basically focusing on leaders in the public life. Next, it marks the launch of the School of Ultimate Learning, Seoul, which will be based in Gandhinagar. Now this school has to be opened yet. Now what is the vision of Seoul? It is designed to cultivate young leadership and encourage participation in public life. Secondly, it envisages medium to long-term training session which will be starting in 2027 after this school has been built up. Thirdly, it aims to bring together team leaders from various fields to share their life experiences, successes and failures with the youth. Now based upon this, you can attempt the prelims question visible on your screen. So with this, we conclude today's session. We hope that it would have been helpful for you. Thank you.